Good morning, Bucknutters. Welcome into the Bucknuts Morning 5 here on Thursday, May 28th, 2015. I am Dave Biddle, and I'm joined by the people's champ, Matt Baxendell. Bax, let's start off talking recruiting and a young man from your neck of the woods, Damar Hamlin, four-star corner from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. He will release his top 10 list next week. I guess he's feeling that David Letterman vibe. Not cutting it down to 5, he's cutting it down to 10. Now, looking at the crystal ball picks, this looks like a dead heat between Ohio State and Penn State. They each have 46% of the crystal ball votes. Damar Hamlin is 6'1", 180 pounds. He's ranked as the number 11 corner in the country, number 140 overall player in the country in the 2016 class, according to 24/7 Sports Composite. Bax, he's a Pittsburgh kid, just like yourself. What's going to happen with Damar Hamlin, in your opinion?
Well, first of all, these top 10 lists are getting ridiculous, aren't they? When everybody pretty much knows this is a Penn State versus Ohio State battle. I mean, I get a little tired of the top 10 thing. I guess that you can call it a Letterman homage all you want. The kids love the attention. But that aside, Damar Hamlin is the classic example of the kind of recruiting battle Ohio State's going to need to win the next couple of years if they want to stay ahead of Penn State as James Franklin restocks that program. Right now, Damar Hamlin's the top 10 kid in the state of Pennsylvania. Damar Hamlin is a guy who very much is wanted by Ohio State and is also very much in need by Penn State. You can't let your best players get away if you expect to be the big dog in conference. You have to win at home. So for Ohio State, this is the same thing as going into that state up north when Urban Meyer got here and starting to really put pressure on the school up north to compete for their best players to stay. And, you call it making them defend their home turf, call whatever you want. It's a brilliant move by Urban Meyer, and if Ohio State can get another top recruit out of Western Pennsylvania, where they've had a lot of success the last 10 years getting players, then it's all the better for Ohio State because it's a double whammy kind of win. This is one that's going to go on a little while still here, but this is going to be Ohio State, Penn State when it comes down to it.
Sticking with recruiting, Nike's The Opening Regional Camp will be held at Ohio State this Sunday. A couple of the players that Ohio State's hot after will be there. Austin Mack, the wide receiver from Fort Wayne, and Luke Farrell, the tight end from Perry, Ohio. They will both be there. Now, Austin Mack's going to announce his decision 1 week after that camp. He'll announce on Sunday, June 7th. Bax, Bill Kurlick, who is as conservative as they come, say Austin Mack is 90% going to commit to Ohio State. Now, using the modified Stableford scoring system, I think that equates to about 100% when Bill Kurlick gives somebody a 90%. I mean, Austin Mack seems like as close to a lock as you could possibly be. What do you think, Bax?
Oh, yeah. I mean, if Bill Kurlick says it's 90%, dress up in a dancing banana suit and start going. This is it. Austin Mack is a kid who I think everybody is looking at as a very, very, very likely to be a Buckeye kind of player. And I think we kind of saw the writing on the wall there when Ohio State let Justin Lane go up to Michigan State. Austin Mack was one of the higher-rated guys on the board that they felt really good about landing. He's a player that Ohio State has been the leader for a very long time now. It's a matter of time. That is literally all it is. And he may publicly announce his commitment a week after that Nike opening camp, but a large part of me says that the coaching staff isn't going to let him leave Columbus without a formal commitment to them.
And Luke Farrell, big-time recruit, number 5 tight end in the country, number 161 overall player in the country in the 2016 class, according to the 24/7 Sports Composite. 10th best player in the state of Ohio. 100% of the crystal ball picks have him going to Ohio State. The thing is, they already have a tight end in the class with Jake Hausman. Now, I remember, a few years back when they signed a couple of tight ends with Jeff Hireman and Nick Van Nett. That worked out pretty well. Do you think we're going to see a similar situation? I guess I figured when Hausman signed that they might be done recruiting tight ends, but that's obviously not the case. What do you think is going to happen here, Bax?
Well, I think Ohio State's going to land Farrell for a couple reasons. First of all, Farrell was very, very big on the Buckeyes going back to the summer. And just because Hausman's committed doesn't mean that you can't take a second player at that position. Like you said, look at Hireman and Van Nett. That was the comparison I was going to make right away. I'm sure the coaching staff had said, hey, look at these guys who came in the same year and how it worked out. So I think that's certainly going to be something with Farrell. But the other thing is there was some question about whether Farrell was, as excited about it, getting a chance to be a Buckeye whenever Hausman committed. There were people who were thinking, well, maybe he'll look elsewhere. But here's the problem. Nobody even thinks he's seriously looking elsewhere. I mean, the crystal ball hasn't changed at all. Farrell hasn't given any reason other than the fact that he hasn't committed yet for people to be really concerned about him ending up anywhere than Columbus. This is a kid who grew up an Ohio State fan. He's a Buckeye kid. He's from an area of the state that's pretty big, a pro-Ohio State area. This is just a matter of time, I think, with Farrell as well. He's one of those players that yes, the staff has made decisions to consciously move on from some kids in state this year. We expected to be in this class. It's like Brendan Fern, guys like Justin Lane. For whatever reason, the staff decided it was time to end the relationship and let them go on to be going elsewhere. That's not the case with Luke Farrell. I think Luke Farrell's a player who's going to end up in this recruiting class, and I think it's a player Ohio State badly needs in this recruiting class, because if you look at the tight end depth chart after this year, it's a lot of question marks and unproven players. So I absolutely want both Farrell and Hausman in this class, because it's the thinnest position depth-wise on the entire roster.
Let's go north of the border. That state up north. Michigan redshirt freshman defensive back Jabril Peppers says he is an indentured servant because he is forced to eat ramen noodles and other really cheap food. He can't afford to buy food, he says. Let's get your take on this first, Bax. What do you think about this?
Well, first of all, if the best player in terms of, talent and all that other stuff for that school up north is starving, and it really makes you wonder what they're doing with their training table and their nutrition program. I mean, if this is going on up there where these guys are consistently not getting enough to eat, it really explains why they haven't been able to develop anybody for a good decade. Going back to the end of the Lloyd Carr era, when every recruit that goes up there, you get 4-star recruits and 2-star results out of them. I mean, it's an indictment, if you will, about what's going on with their nutrition program. I mean, you guys have guys at OSU who are like, complaining that they're eating so much because they can barely get it down to try to put on weight. Guys like Darren Lee, I mean, geez, you hear these guys tell stories about how much they have to eat or what kind of crazy diets are set up for them. So that's a big difference between the two programs right there. Second of all, the way this works for folks who aren't aware is Jabril Peppers apparently isn't living in the dorms this year. He moved off campus and all this other stuff. Well, the way that works is, instead of you getting a meal plan from the school, you get a check that's the equivalent of the meal plan. So what you're doing is you're giving these kids the money all up front. And maybe, just maybe, Mr. Peppers isn't the best in the world at controlling his finances. If you look back through his Twitter account, he likes to talk about all this other stuff he's bought. Is a lot of that coming with his meal money check that he got, which leaves him like $30 for all those oodles and noodles he's talking about? I think it's ridiculous on every level that he's complaining that he's a, quote, indentured servant whenever, theoretically, all the food money in the world's available to him. And if Michigan's training table isn't up to snuff, and I can't imagine that they're not trying to do something like that, that would be so incompetent on behalf of their coaches if they weren't doing something like that in terms of training table and nutritional programs. That this, to me, is Pepper spouting off at the mouth because he spent too much of his money on other things he shouldn't have been spending it on, and now finds himself eating ramen noodles for the next couple of weeks. And it's called learning how to budget. That's what this is.
That's exactly what it is. For those that think that he might be being sincere here, that he's not getting enough to eat, that is BS. He is spending his money on the wrong things because these guys get plenty of money to fill their fridges. They get plenty of money. They can go over to the football facility and eat as much as they want. There's no restrictions on that any longer. So I'm not buying this for a second. He must be spending his money on the wrong things, as you said, Bax. Last thing, Cardale Jones is going to grace the cover of ESPN the magazine. At least there's no ESPN the magazine jinx. My things continue to change for Cardale. I know some people are worried about, is he getting too big of a head? He had to, spout with a little back and forth with Joe Kino on Twitter and all that. I think this just kind of goes with the territory. He wasn't going to just hibernate during the offseason. I think it's pretty cool. Your thoughts on Cardale being on the cover of the next ESPN magazine?
Well, it's certainly a big deal for a guy who came out of nowhere. I mean, let's face it, America loves out-of-nowhere stories. Cardale Jones is, for most people who aren't Ohio State fans, was literally a player they had never, ever heard of until he went on and beat Wisconsin by 59 points. Like, that's the level of growth we've seen in Cardale Jones, is that I would wager most college football fans could tell you exactly who Cardale Jones is at this point, and a lot of people outside of college football. And it's to the point now where he's on the cover of one of the biggest sports magazines in America. There is a legitimate concern, though, saying Cardale Jones doing too much stuff off the field that he shouldn't be doing. I remember, full disclosure, I am a Steelers. I remember after Ben Roethlisberger won the first Super Bowl for the Steelers, he did all these TV commercials, and people were worried he was doing too much stuff or he wasn't focusing on football. I can get that with Jones, but here's the thing. Jones can't go out and do commercials or anything like that. He's not going to be pulled too far of his focus off of football. And B, you're hearing all these stories about how Cardale Jones is being a celebrity to sort of help people back in Cleveland where he's from. You hear all these stories about him trying to inspire younger people. And it's not a lot of stuff that's, reported on officially. It's just anecdotal stories you hear from people in the area. Oh, yeah, people saw Cardale and he sat and talked with them for a while, you know. Or Cardale at his returning press conference was saying, you know, he wanted to provide inspiration for people from his part of town that they could go on and see what they could achieve. You know, the sky's their limit. I think Cardale's doing a lot of that stuff behind the scenes, but I don't think that we should be concerned yet. Natural human instinct, maybe, but Cardale knows he's got to win a starting job back right now. So I can't blame him for enjoying himself, but I think he's very serious about his football right now. There's other players in the team I'd be a lot more worried about than Cardale Jones, because there's other players in the team who already have the starting gigs lined up no matter what. Cardale does not.
Fantastic insights as usual out of the People's Champ. He is Matt Baxendell. I am Dave Biddle, and I thank you guys for tuning into the show. Hope everybody has a great day. Take it away, best damn band in the land.